Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby, and today Thanimal is going to show us just how awful the Alfsklärungspanzer is. I hopefully am pronouncing it right. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. My German pronunciation is pretty horrible. But anyway, let's not focus on that. Let's show you guys just what this tank is all about. It is the Tier 7 German light tank, and it's not really talked about very much, but that is going to change. Whereas previously you could avoid this tank if you wanted to get to the Panzer. That's not going to happen next patch if you want to get to the Speerpanzer RU-251. So Thanimal puts in a good shot into this Tier 6 Chinese light tank. And he uses auto-aim a lot in this replay, to great effect. So he is sort of reverse side-scraping against the RU-251, who he waits to miss his shot, and then puts a good hit into him. He's already taken that Chinese light tank down to 28 hit points. But he sees a Pershing rushing towards him, probably thinking, nom nom nom, look at that fat juicy panther with 950 hit points that I can take on. Now the Alf Panther has got 157mm of penetration frontally with its 75mm. Here the Pershing came round the corner, tried to ram the light tank, but saw a Super Pershing blocking him. Thanimal uses the Super Pershing well to avoid most of the damage. And his team crossfire the enemy Pershing into obliteration. Now, even though that Pershing rammed Thanimal, he was only able to do 12 damage. Unlike what Thanimal just did to that 59-16. But it's too much action going on right here. This Tier 7 Soviet tank destroyer just came around the corner, used his 152mm derp cannon to put one into the side of Thanimal. But thankfully, due to the weight of Thanimal, he's able to bully his way past the SU-152, get his flank, and finish him off with an ammo rack at the end. Although it didn't really matter, considering the ammo rack was only for less than the alpha damage of the gun. But what an aggressive start for Thanimal here. Now he has the back of a Jagdpanther 2, which he makes a great use of, stops in the perfect position to try and hold the back of the Jagdpanther 2, and makes that Tier 8 tank destroyer look rather silly. So, what an absolute thundering start here in the game for Thanimal. He managed to circle round an SU-152, a Tier 7 Soviet tank destroyer, after he absorbed, well, didn't fully absorb, he absorbed the shot with his life, losing about 430 hit points from that 152mm HE shell to the side of his tank. Now, many light tanks would have died to that kind of a shell. It would have overpenetrated their very thin armor. But you know what? Not the Alf Panther, not this Tier 7 German light tank. So Thanimal now mounts up the western ridge to try and get a vantage point on this Object 704. Puts in a good first shot, bounces the second, misses the third, and bounces the fourth. It's very unlikely that you're able to go through an Object 704 with 157mm of penetration unless you have the rear of the vehicle. Thanimal considers pulling back, but then sees that he has an opportunity to shoot an AMX 1390 in the side. Oh, that was close. Marksman shot there just whizzes past the top of the house. Just grazing the chimney. And this game is an absolute obliteration. I believe that teams had lost 9 tanks only 3 minutes into the game. But now it slows down just a little bit, just for a few seconds. So maybe I can talk about what this Tier 7 German light tank is. It has the hull of a Panther and the option of 2 turrets. One of them is the same turret on the Leopard, which is the Tier 4 German light tank. And the other one is the VK2801, which is the Tier 6 German light tank. And it looks like the turret on this tank is the VK2801's turret. I believe you need to have that to be able to mount this awesome 75mm, which the animal is putting to good use in this replay. So having the hull of a Panther does have its advantages. And the main advantage is that this light tank weighs 40 tons. Yeah, it's a light tank. It's only a light tank by category. And here, the animal has the back of an Object 704, a very dangerous Tier 9 Soviet tank destroyer. Luckily for him, down this narrow pass in a graveyard of tanks, the Object 704 was unable to turn himself around. And Thanimal put some punishing shots into his side. He narrowly avoids what would have been a devastating shell from an FB-207, which, thanks to the strong side armor of this tank, only manages to do minimal damage and take off the tracks. Against a more lightly armored light tank, that shell could have been a lot more significant. But right now, Thanimal has got a very grave situation on his hands. He is against a Borsig, a Tier 8 German tank destroyer, a Tier 8 British artillery, a full health Jagdpanther that we saw, and a T-25 AT. Them's not good odds, really, for a Tier 7 German light tank, which can get one shot by half of the enemy team. And this T-25 AT managed to spot Thanimal. He narrowly avoids what would have been a crushing blow from the FB-207, ducking into the ditch, which was a very nice move to avoid fire. So we can see that even though the Alpha Panther weighs 40 tons, it is still quite nimble. It has a serious engine on this tank, allowing it to scoot around a lot faster than what a regular Panther could. And just to talk about that really, for all intents and purposes, this is a medium tank. But because of the fact that it is classed as a light tank, that means that it gets its full camouflage bonus, whether it's stationary or moving. And that's one of the most important features of these kind of vehicles that are rather large and weigh a lot, but they are classed as light tanks. That means that it doesn't matter if you're going forwards at 60 kilometers an hour or if you're sitting in the open. There's a completely equal chance that the enemy are going to spot you. Well, not so much of a chance, because there is no chance of whether they're going to spot you or not. It's going to be more of a case of, doesn't matter. If you're at 400 meters, going at 60 kilometers an hour, or you're sitting still in the open at 400 meters, you're going to get spotted, you're going to get spotted. But right now, Thanimal is trying to track down the location of the enemy Jagdpanther. And what's very important when you're outnumbered at the end of the game is that you try and take out your opponents as quickly as possible, one by one by one. You don't want to let them group up. If they group up, then they can flank you, and that makes it so much harder to be able to mitigate the damage that you would take. But what Thanimal has done, he made a very large pass along the western flank, is he wanted to secure the base. Because obviously on a regular game, your base could be capped within 1 minute and 40 seconds. He spots the Tier 8 British tank destroyer, who fires clutch. Now caught completely out of position, he has no chance. And Thanimal successfully takes out one of the 4 remaining enemy tanks. Now something absolutely hilarious happens here in the chat. You're just going to have to take my word for it. That the enemy FB-207 says, awful Panther got me. And Thanimal is definitely proving you wrong here. And a good worker never blames his tools. But Thanimal has been caught completely out in the open here by a Jagdpanther. And the ambushing shot from the T-25AT was ineffective against the side armor of the Alf-Panther. And some clutch reactions from Thanimal. And a nice damaging roll of 123 bring down the Tier 7 American tank destroyer without taking any damage. Now the enemy object 704 makes a very honourable remark here. He says, "Not gonna lie, you are doing very well, Panther." And he gives him props. But let's not worry about him being nice to somebody right now. He probably thinks they've still got this situation. Thanimal makes some amazing evasive maneuvers there to trick the Jagdpanther into thinking he was going one way, and then using the excellent track traverse, jukes back to get the side of the Jagdpanther, who is now panicking and feeling the DPM of this 75mm. The Jagdpanther finally manages to put a shot into Thanimal, tracking him in the open, and Thanimal can only hope here that the Borsig does not manage to get a shot on him. Thanimal was able to take out the entirety of that Tier 7 German tank destroyer, but oh gosh, there's a Borsig who's got his backside. Thankfully the Borsig misses, and by the sound of that caliber of shell, it was 150mm. That means the Borsig is going to take a hell of a lot longer to reload than if he had the 128. Thanimal decides to make his move right now. He's not hanging round. Circles the Borsig, who doesn't turn his tracks in the same way as his turret, which is a complete disaster for the Borsig. Now the Borsig figures out that he needs to turn his tracks in the same way as his turret, cutting off what could have been Thanimal's exit route. But thankfully Thanimal uses the mobility of this tank to be able to claim the scalp of that Borsig. 100% of that Tier 8 German tank destroyer taken away from him with only 148 hit points in a Tier 7 German light tank. What a fantastic move that was. That must have been a very satisfying moment at the end of this game. Literally running rings around that Tier 8 turreted German tank destroyer and winning the game 1 versus 4 when many of the tanks had full health. Maybe this replay gave you guys a lot of hope if you're thinking, gosh, I need to get to the RU-251, but I don't want to play through the awful Panther. Looks like if you can get some skills like Thanimal and also get yourself into the right situation, this isn't going to be too bad of a grind. Anyway, Thanimal, thank you so much for sending me this replay. It was really awesome, and it was probably one of, if not the best, Alf Panther replays that I have seen. Let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats. So Thanimal picked up a Top Gun and a high caliber medal in his Tier 7 German light tank. He made 29,000 credits profit and 1,948 base experience. He did over 5,000 damage, vanquishing 7 of the enemy team. He showed remarkable marksmanship even though he was on the move most of the time, firing 62 and hitting 49 of those, and 43 of those 49 penetrated. The majority of his damage was not done from very long range like you might think it would be in a Panther. Only 266 damage of the 5,300 was done at a distance of more than 300 meters. And that's because Thanimal was simply running rings around his opponents, taking them out one by one by one. What a great result for a light tank. To be able to achieve 30,000 WN8 for this victory, he had to travel nearly 6 kilometers, living the dream going 1v1 with so many tank destroyers that light tank drivers truly love. So just to clarify, guys, again, in 9.3, if you want to get to the Speerpanzer RU-251, you're going to have to go through the Aufklärungspanzer, and I wish you all just as much luck and skill as Thanimal. If you want to see that Speerpanzer RU-251 preview that I've done from the 9.3 test server, you can just click up here and it will take you through to it. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments what you think about the awful Panther. Do you think it's as bad as what everyone says, or do you think that there are certain situations where it can flourish, just like what we saw in this replay? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.